Hello everyone, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today we're returning to, well, not really returning to, today we're taking a first look at a brand new game that's just out on Steam. It's published by Paradox, and it is made by Eugen Systems. And if you know anything about Eugen Systems and you follow them, then you probably already know what game I'm looking at. And in short, that game is Steel Division, Normandy 44. It is the newest game out by Eugen Systems, their return to World War II after the ill-fated Ruse, and feels very much like a World War II version of the Wargame series. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with Eugen Systems, they're the developer of a game that was, I believe, published by either Ubisoft or Activision, maybe like 10 years ago now, called Ruse, which was a World War II first real-time strategy game, an RTS game. I hope I didn't say first-person shooter earlier, but a real-time strategy game. And it had a full-blown AAA narration campaign-type style. Took you through Western Europe. I believe it started in North Africa and then Italy, and was on PlayStation, was on Xbox, was on the computer. It's this big release. It had some interesting ideas in the sense that it had things like the ability to deceive your opponent about what you were doing. They had these different event cards, or I can't remember exactly how it was termed, but it may not have been an event card, but it was this way that you could deceive your enemy through like radio transmissions and things like that. So he'd think you were coming one way when really your attack would be coming the other way. That's the whole concept, ruse. You'd have a ruse and kind of fool the enemy. That didn't do very well, and then they ended up, I think, self-publishing for their next several titles, which was Wargame European Escalation, Wargame Airland Battle, and Wargame Red Dragon. Wargame European Escalation and Airland Battle were Cold War gone hot RTSs, so very much the Ruse engine with some tweaks. That was then modified to fit a Cold War environment. And then Wargame Red Dragon was a Cold War gone hot, but in Asia. And these games seem most popular for their multiplayer. People seem to love to play them. You can build your own decks, build your own units, kind of create the outfit your units the way that you want them outfitted, and then plop them down on one of their massive battles and fight a battle. Well, Eugen has decided to return to having a publisher. They've signed Paradox, which if you're a strategy gamer, you already know who Paradox is, but basically the publishers and Paradox Interactive, the development house, they make Stellaris, they make EU4, they make Crusader Kings. This is from the publishing arm of Paradox, so same company but different division, if you will. And they're publishing Eugen Systems Steel Division Normandy 44. So this is, again, very much a war game, and I don't mean that as in a war game, definition or genre. I mean the war game series, very much a war game of World War II that is just kind of taking the Cold War system and plugging it back into World War II without some of the more complicated or maybe less intuitive Ruse-type features that didn't go so well when Ubisoft was the publisher. And I've got to say, so far, I'm pretty impressed. Now, what you're seeing in front of you is actually, I know there's not any gameplay audio, that's because this was taken from a live stream with Kushan from Kushan's Gaming, and with the Stoic Frog, I believe is his channel name, or now the name of the channel. Dr. Zaius on the online Discord, if you ever go there. But he's the runner of the Stoic Gaming channel. And this was a multiplayer. The three of us took on very easy computers. This is literally a first take, our very first impressions of the game. And, I'm taking the right flank. I was given a unit, the 3rd Armored, the old Ironsides, I believe it was, or maybe it was 1st Armored, I lost track. And you can see here I'm advancing up the right side of the map. You can see there, I believe it's Kushan in the center who's advancing up the left, and what have you. But what this video really is this is more or less a first look, a first impressions of Eugen Systems' newest game. The game is available on Steam. It is currently in pre-order status, so if you buy the pre-order, you get access to the beta. So this game is in beta, if you will. Its full launch is slated for May 23rd of this year, so it's about a month away from launching, a little bit over a month away from launching. And as you can tell as you play through the game, it is very much like Wargame Airland Battle. You can create your own decks for your own custom units when you're playing online. I don't know what the campaign looks like because the campaign isn't available yet. So really, this is more of a first impression than it is an actual review or anything like that of the game. But it has the same mechanics, essentially. You move across the map, you have your troops that kind of slide, across the map. You right-click where you want them to go, left-click to select them. And, they have limits on how much ammunition they have. They have limits on fuel, so you need to play with some logistics in mind. You'll see later I've got to call up some GMCs, which are some 2-ton trucks, some deuce and a halves that are able to resupply forces with ammo and with fuel. I'm not sure if fuel plays a role because I haven't seen that yet. Sorry if you hear any background noise. There's some people having a rather loud party outside right now. But I'm not sure if the game includes fuel as a limited resource. I know a lot of the Wargame episodes previously have, but this one has not. You can see here my vehicles are shooting at a German aircraft. Aircraft are definitely involved, both for air-to-air combat and air-to-ground strikes, just as in the Wargame series where you could call in close air support and things like that. I don't know if there's any heavy bombers. Most of what I've seen have been like P-47s and P-51s, and I know there's a Spitfire in there as well. I assume the British units have Tornadoes. The game has a extensive list of units. Has things like Tigers, Panthers, Shermans, and various variants of them. Various variants. Well said, I suppose. Anyway, it also had the M4A1, which had the 75mm gun. It also has the Sherman with the 76mm. I believe it has the Firefly. In short, there's literally hundreds of units. I want to say the number I saw in the press release was 400 units to choose from. And the gameplay, at least there's multiple different multiplayer gameplays, but the one that we're playing right now is, in essence, you conquer the map. So you have to advance across the map, and you've kind of got this moving front line you can see in front of you. You've got this blue section, which is ours, and this red section, which is the enemy. And as you move across the map, you push the enemy back, which this kind of frontline features is kind of neat, because as you zoom out, you can kind of see, hey, listen, I might be creating a pocket of sorts. I could be surrounding enemy units. It gives you a sense of where the enemy is at. And the gameplay also has this sort of multi-phased approach to gameplay. When you first deploy your forces, you can't deploy them all. You can only deploy a subset. So one piece that you saw at the beginning of the battle is I had to kind of select my initial starting force. And that was somewhat, what I could select was somewhat determined by the fact that, my troops it was in the scouting phase, which, and that was nice. You just see I took out a tank there. Looks like just kind of a crappy German, Panzer 38, so something really crappy. Again, remember, we're playing against the AI in very easy difficulty. This was literally our first attempt at playing the game, and we didn't want to get blown away. But again, as I was saying, so the battle goes through multiple phases, and the forces that you can actually deploy seem to be determined in part by what those phases are. So you get a selection of recon troops, recon equipment, and things like that that you can access in the first phase of the battle. Again, it's to represent you're moving your vanguard of your forces forward, some light infantry, some light equipment, some scouting vehicles, some leaders that you move forward. They provide some morale bonuses, and it allows you to get into the sense of a battle. You didn't have a line of 40 tanks moving forward at the vanguard of a column without any real screen in front of them, right? That would just be a foolish thing to do. So the game gives you, a limitation on how much armor you can pull up at the start, a limitation on some of the unit types that you can pull up at the start. And then once the first phase is complete, then, you get a different selection of units for the second phase of the battle. Right now, it looks like we're in phase B of the fight, which, again, means that the battle is kind of progressed past the initial scouting phase and is moving into the next phase. You can see here the battle gives us 33 more minutes, I believe, maybe a total of 40 minutes or so, or a total of 45 minutes. Somewhere in there is where we set it to. That can all be customized. And it, in essence, makes the battle a more interesting, more complex setup, where instead of setting up this ideal troop setup without having to change anything, it, requires you to say, okay, I've got 500 points. I can recruit, this much infantry, this much armor. This is what's available at the start of the fight. And you kind of go from there. As you can see right here, I'm trying to pin down some German troops in a tree line. And I've got 3 squads engaging them. One of them is a recon force on my right. The other 2 are regular infantry squads. Getting chewed up a bit here, but the idea was to have the 2 squads on the flanks pin the enemy down while the middle squad charged forward, closes the range, and destroys them. Hasn't quite worked out that way, but it is what it is. We've run into this little village here. It doesn't seem the enemy has enemy troops in there, but we're moving some of our own forces into those buildings to take up some positions there. And you can see the enemy is moving a Pack 38 forward as well on our flank, so we'll probably shift some of our infantry that way. Bringing up another reserve squad, you can see the enemy has surrendered. That's got this little white flag icon over their forces in the tree line. I didn't notice the game requiring you to do anything different when an enemy unit surrenders. It seems to mainly be just sort of a visual graphic without much in the way of changes as you go. I'm actually going to jump out of my narration and into the stream just for a couple of, for a minute or two, so you can actually hear the gameplay and hear the audio from the gameplay, because one of the things that I think really stands out with this game, and with all the wargame games, is the sound. The sound effects in this game are brilliant. So I'm going to jump out. You may hear me talking to either Kushan or to Doc as I play here. Again, they're on my left in this battle. This battle also supports, I believe, up to 10v10 multiplayer is what it will support. But let's go ahead and jump into the game. We'll talk about that more in a bit.
I heard there were Tigers in this area.
Enemy fired around at me. They missed. Ah! Reload faster. Ooh. Yeah! I love me some tank combat in this game. As long as, I'm winning.
Actually, no. No, undo that. You guys move fast.
I still haven't bought anything. That's error. Can I do anything? I don't really see any artillery options.
I don't know what the command carrier is good for. Anybody know?
I don't know. Mine's just sitting there taking up space.
Oh, that's sexy. Boom!
I heard there were Tigers in this area.
I need a tank. Yes, sir. So I have Churchills now. Let's bring in a couple of Churchill tanks.
Are we still phase 1?
We're phase 2.
Nope. Phase B.
Shite.
Choose your target. Where do you need us? At your orders.
Oh boy.
Germans ahead.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna like this game a lot more when I actually figure out what the hell I'm doing with it. Alright, so we're gonna want.
Come on, hit it. Shooting at some unknown tank at distance. He's falling back.
Where are we headed?
Anyone have any aircraft with bombs on them?
I do not.
Nice, we took out his tracks. All I have is a recce. A bounce?
Reporting for duty. Second platoon, let's go.
Nice, took out another enemy tank. Another one's coming down the road! I was arguing with someone last night on Discord about the Sherman tank. Apparently I was very mistaken and that it was actually much better than we typically think of it being.
Yeah, I knew that.
I mean, I knew it was a good support tank. It just never struck me as the kind of tank I would want to go into, like, another, tank engagement with. At the very least, I think it's fair to say the 75mm version was dramatically undergunned.
Well, yeah, I think that's fair.
Alright, that was my attempt to get you to hear some sound effects from the game. It didn't really come through very well. The gameplay audio was pretty muted, and you could probably hear Kushan and Doc speaking a little bit in there as well. That was taken from the live stream, so that was probably a little bit of a poor example. But again, in my opinion, the sound effects in the game are really well done. The gameplay mechanics are really well done. Again, with the caveat that we were playing against a really easy AI, so we were basically just pushing across the enemy AI. We didn't face any modern enemy tanks, for example. They were all enemy PZ or Panther 38, whatever the name was. A really old German tank that I think was from 1939. But you can see here we've moved into Phase C. We've called in some reinforcements. They ride in on half tracks. But again, don't be stupid when you play the game, right? Don't move your half tracks across the map without taking your infantry off them, because if that half track gets hit, you'll be wiped out. This to me seems like a really fast-paced combat mission game. I know combat mission wasn't turn-based. Was turn-based. It wasn't real-time. It was sort of a quasi-real-time game where you put your turns in, the other side put its turns in, and then they resolved simultaneously. But it really was one of those, combat mission was really one of those early, authentic, quasi-real-time, tactical World War II games. And the Wargame system, and I'm going to call it the Wargame system here because it really is a follow-on to the Wargame system, really does a good job of capturing that without making things too in-depth. If you're someone who enjoys fast-paced World War II feeling games, or at least what you think World War II games should feel like, and you enjoy, a whole slew of units, hundreds of units, quick battles, challenging opposition, you could be into multiplayer, you may not, then I really recommend this game. I can't really speak to the campaign game yet, because again, the game isn't to the point where they're sharing that with us yet. But it really does feel, like a true spiritual successor to the Wargames series. And yeah, so like I said, very much in line with the Wargames series. It fits very well between kind of the ultra-realistic games like Combat Mission and the very arcadey type games at the bottom. Wargame fits kind of in the middle there, and it does so well and in an entertaining and fun way thus far, anyway. Again, I'm too early to really be able to make a valid review or anything like that. But one other thing I will address, and which I mentioned in the stream portion that you heard, is I was always under the impression that the Sherman was a death trap, that it was a poor tank. There's a lot of myths, apparently, that I didn't know about till I started kind of discussing this game, talking about the Sherman, talking about how it played. And apparently, and many of you may already know this, the Sherman was dramatically underrated, and it was actually a very effective tank. One of the big criticisms I think I mentioned in here is that the Sherman is kind of known as having this low-velocity 75mm gun that was great for support of infantry, but it was not great for anti-tank combat, which I think is true and is still accurate. But one of the big criticisms with it is it didn't have very good range. The German tanks and optics outranged it and were better, which is again true. But one of the things with the Sherman is that, especially in Normandy, and I think the game, what we've seen of it anyway, thus far, does this very well. If you're just looking at Normandy, the game gives you a very limited scope, and the Sherman was more effective in Normandy than you think. It was also more vulnerable for this very same reason than you think, because the Sherman would rarely engage the enemy at ranges where that distance for the velocity or distance for the enemy would matter. And that's because, thanks to these hedgerows, these fields, this whole structure with this cover in between every couple hundred yards, you would very rarely have a very long-range tank duel in Normandy. So it kind of minimized and hid some of the Sherman's failings. Now, naturally, the Sherman took very heavy losses because as you're advancing at very short ranges, you're not going to get the benefit of your armor very much. And the Sherman, despite having a thin amount of armor, was sloped, so it was actually pretty effective. With that being said, you can see here I was calling up some ammo trucks. The game does replicate logistics as well. I've mentioned this a few times, but vehicles can run out of ammo. I'm not clear if they can run out of fuel. I somewhat doubt it, given I marched my troops all the way across, and more specifically my tanks all the way across the map without halting to fuel up or anything like that. But you can see that little ammunition icon next to my tank right there. That means it's low on ammo. And so I called in 3 deuce-and-a-half trucks. You can see there's 4 burned out German tanks here along this roadway, all killed by our Sherman. But the game models ammunition, for example, and units can run out of ammunition. You've got to keep them in supply. So not only is this a game that makes terrain important, using your cover, using your hedgerows, not charging across open fields, but it's also a game that makes logistics important. You're not going to have troops that have unlimited ammunition, for example, and therefore you need to make sure that you husband your resources there. Additionally, the way this frontline system works and the way the fact that you do have to rely on logistics makes the game require you to guard your flanks. I've had infantry on my flanks almost the entire way up. I've also had some Stuarts on my flank for a portion of this. And that's because, again, tactics are somewhat important here. I don't want to advance all my troops up the center without guarding my flanks, because if I do that, the enemy can come in behind me, cut me off, which it's not like a grand strategy game where we're instantly out of food and supplies at that point, but if I do need more ammo, if I do need reinforcements and I'm cut off, that doesn't help me. And so you do want to maintain a constant link with your rear. Otherwise, you'll only have whatever you bring with you, and no reinforcements will make it through to you, no ammunition will make it through to you, and you will steadily lose effectiveness throughout the battle. So this battle doesn't do a great job of showing the importance of logistics, but it's there, and it is something you need to be aware of, something that you need to take into account as you play. It also includes, I believe it's going to include Canada, as well as Australia, something like 6 nations, and I think playing from the German side will be interesting. I'm really interested to see how the campaign plays through. The Wargame series tend to be more multiplayer focused, at least the community seems to appreciate the multiplayer focus more than, a lot of other games. But I believe with that said, the stream is about to come to an end. I do want to apologize if there was a couple of minutes in there where the audio seemed to get a little bit gravelly. I just noticed that in retrospect. I went ahead and checked back, and it sounded tolerable, although not as good as I would like. So with that being said, guys, I am going to go ahead and I'm going to jump out of the stream or of this video. I'm going to let you guys enjoy the last few seconds of the actual stream and my commentary with Kushan and Doc, and look for more of this, because it is something that I'm starting to play, starting to get into, and enjoying a lot. And I think this is going to become a new piece to the channel quite regularly, at least for a while. We'll show off more pieces to the game. You can see here, everybody's kind of pushed the enemy back in rough parallel with us. But again, guys, I hope you enjoyed, and we'll post some more entertaining and more enjoyable videos and more challenging videos as we go on. And look for, ideally more collaboration with both the Stoic Frog and Kushan from Kushan's Gaming, as they're a lot of fun to play with. I really enjoy their stuff. Check out their channels. And again, thanks for tuning in, guys. Until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying thank you for watching, and go ahead and enjoy what's left here of the stream. Thanks. Support coming in.
You guys take that. You guys can fire at that,
Oh, I had 6 aircraft coming in.
I think we just won. Yeah, nice.
Major victory.
Hey guys, we beat 3 very easy AIs.
It's a story we're going to tell our grandchildren.
Major defeat. 0.600. Hey Doc, we beat Gamer.
Yeah.
668 for each of us versus 667 for him.
Yeah,
Although
look at those kills.
he killed.
My
Look at
goodness.
his kills though. Almost 1,000 troops.
That bent towards logistics really paid off. He had a 10-to-1 kill ratio.
Yeah.
It was really like one Sherman of mine the entire time, just rolling up. Oh, there's another infantry there. Just unload 3 machine guns and the main gun into them, and
Yeah, I think this will be actually a pretty fun game when there's some more maps.
Is it just, what are the maps so far?
They've just got 2, Point Du-Hoc, and I think the one we just played.
Okay. Cool. It counts the people we kicked out of our room as recent contacts.
Yeah, I saw. So, just out of curiosity, what do you guys think? What do you guys think of the match?
I mean, it's hard for me to evaluate because it was literally just move up slowly and not too rapidly, and you will slaughter the enemy. Overall, it seemed like a lot of fun. I feel like it's one of those games where it probably has a lot of really nuanced things that if you're not really ingrained in the war game system against any human player, you're gonna get your ass kicked.